This video is sponsored by Simply Safe. The 2010 NFL Draft, a class that included guys like Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, and Earl Thomas. But none of those dudes were in the top 10. Today, we're going to briefly cover each of the top 10 picks from a decade ago and see how their careers have turned out up to this point. Some have been amazing, while others have been straight up busts. And before we dive into the video, I wanted to talk to you about today's sponsor, Simply Safe. Simply Safe is an incredibly effective and reliable home security system. You can order online or over the phone and it's delivered right to your door. I had recently moved into a new home and I wanted to find a security system that was easy to set up while also being reliable. Luckily, Simply Safe took me less than an hour to set up. And after setting up, everything ran smoothly. Everything starts with this main base station that controls everything. And then you pair it with this keypad, which is super easy to use.
Simply Safe on. Home.
Then you have entry sensors to protect windows and doors, motion sensors, a video doorbell, indoor cameras, water sensors, temperature sensors, and plenty of other important systems to ensure your safety. The main base station will call the police if it's alerted to anything that happens. So, if you don't have a security system for your home, please visit simplysafe.com/KTO to learn more. It's super reliable, easy to set up, and there are no contracts. Links will be down below. With the number 10 pick in the 2010 draft, Jacksonville selected defensive tackle Tyson Alualu. Ranked as the 42nd best prospect in the draft by Sports Illustrated, Tyson was considered a, quote, risky move by Mel Kiper Jr. Despite this, the Jags felt like he could help bolster their defensive line. Right away, he showed promise. He would end up making the all-rookie team, then would go on to start every game for 4 years. But the truth is, Tyson never became the standout star that Jacksonville had hoped. He would slowly fall off after his rookie year, and eventually, he was demoted to backup. He would end up signing with Pittsburgh in 2017 looking for a career renaissance, and to this day, he's one of their rotational defensive linemen. I wouldn't call him a major bust, but he wasn't a good pick at number 10 either.
With the 9th pick in the 2010 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select C.J. Spiller, running back, Clemson.
Spiller, the freshman, in space, where he is lethal. Shaking, rocking, lacerating that defense. C.J. Spiller with the turbo kicking in. C.J. all the way.
If you didn't get a chance to watch this guy in college, you were missing out. The 2009 ACC Player of the Year steamrolled opponents in college. He was so good that Clemson retired his jersey after he left. After dropping some nasty times in the 40, the Bills felt like this was the guy for them. Here's where the story gets really interesting. Entering the 2010 season, guess who else was on the Bills? Marshawn Lynch. Clearly favoring Spiller for the long run, the Bills traded Marshawn to Seattle after the team's 4th game. Looking back, it's safe to say that the Bills chose the wrong guy. Not that they would have known at the time, but Marshawn went on to become beast mode, whereas Spiller never became the player the Bills had hoped. He popped off in 2012, but he sort of became a one-year wonder, quickly falling off to irrelevant. He broke his collarbone in 2014, which would be his final year with the Bills, and by 2018, he couldn't consistently stay on a roster, and failed to be picked up after that. Currently, he's an unpaid intern at Clemson. Former high school phenom and Alabama standout Rolando McClain was the anchor to their first national title under Nick Saban. McClain received high praise entering the NFL. They were saying he was the best inside linebacker to come out since Patrick Willis. Looking for a defensive identity, the Raiders selected him 8th overall in 2010, and by week 2 of his rookie season, he had Raiders fans excited.
1st and 5. Quick turn route, Amendola hit, and then body slam, WWF style, and there's the penalty. Rolando McClain, the number 8 pick overall out of Alabama, got a little frisky and then got some yellow laundry.
The way he played seemed like the perfect fit for the Raiders, but by year 2, his work ethic began to be questioned, and he often argued with coaches. Things got so bad that eventually McClain stated that he was, quote, mentally done with the Raiders and was looking forward to playing for an actual team. This is the point where character issues and off-the-field concerns began to loom large. Oakland had enough of him after 3 years, and they would let him go. He would go on to sign with the Ravens on a 1-year deal, till he announced his sudden retirement at the age of 23. But after the Ravens dealt him to the Cowboys, he decided to come back, and once again, he showcased his ability on the field. But then again, there was problem after problem after problem, and that became the focal point of McClain's life. He would not appear in another NFL game after 2015, and would continue to have issues off the field. He attempted to make a return to the NFL in 2019, but nothing ever materialized.
With the 7th pick in the 2010 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Joe Hayden, defensive back, Florida.
Joe Hayden is just an incredible athlete. He was a standout quarterback and safety in high school, but he turned his focus to playing cornerback at Florida. His junior year was remarkable, achieving unanimous All-American honors and was considered the best corner of the 2010 class. The Browns actually got a top 10 pick right for once with this dude. He had 6 interceptions his rookie season, and he became a back-to-back Pro Bowler in 2013 and 2014. But of course, the Browns found a way to mess this up. Deciding to begin their rebuild in 2016, they would cut Hayden. He had been injury prone and people questioned whether or not he could return to that Pro Bowl level play. He immediately signed with their rival Pittsburgh, and guess what happened? He became a Pro Bowler for them. Currently, he's a starter and one of the important pieces to the Steelers' defense. Originally projected as high as number 1 overall, Russell Okung fell to the Seahawks. Okung had dominated in college and even held dudes like Von Miller in check. He was essentially a can't-miss prospect. You all know where Seattle ended up in 2012, the Super Bowl. Russell was a critical component on that team. He was a Pro Bowl level player, protecting Russell Wilson's back while also opening up holes for Marshawn and the run game. He would continue to play well, but he couldn't recapture that 2012 success, and after 6 years with the Seahawks, he would put his trust in himself and venture off to Denver. 1 year later, he would sign with the Chargers. This is when he recaptured that elite level play and returned to the Pro Bowl. Unfortunately, blood clots in his lungs got in the way of his 2019 season, and he would be traded to Carolina, where he's currently starting. With the number 6 pick, Kansas City selected Eric Berry. The dude was an absolute monster in Tennessee's secondary. His storied career ended with a unanimous All-American honor and the Jim Thorpe Award, which is given to the best defensive back in college football. If you want to talk about a story for the ages, Eric Berry's is both tragic and powerful. Ability-wise, he lived up to expectations right away. He became a Pro Bowler as a rookie, but the following year, he would tear his ACL. Obviously, there's always concerns about bouncing back from these type of injuries, but Berry would come back with vengeance. In 2012 and 2013, he was arguably the best safety in football. Then the following year, after a few games, Berry began to complain of chest pains.
Short time ago, the Chiefs placed Eric Berry on NFI, non-football injury list, which means he will be sidelined for the remainder of the season. And they now believe that he does have lymphoma.
After 9 months of treatments and rehab, Berry would end up cancer-free. This had turned into a feel-good story for Berry, his family, and the city of Kansas City. Then he stepped back on the field and bounced back in unimaginable fashion, playing at the highest level of his NFL career.
Is that Berry? Yes, it is. Eric Berry.
Amazing, right? He would go on to sign a 6-year, $78 million contract with the Chiefs, only to rupture his Achilles so badly, he never played another snap after 2018. Jeez, talk about a story.
The Washington Redskins select Trent Silverback Williams, offensive tackle, Oklahoma.
Earlier, I talked about how good Russell Okung was considered coming out of college, but he wasn't the first offensive tackle selected. That honor goes to Trent Williams, the man whose nickname is Silverback, as in a silverback gorilla. He's known to be decked out in gorilla gear. He sports gorilla tattoos, he owns gorilla art, and he even has this bejeweled necklace. On the football field, Trent has been dominant. He went to 7 Pro Bowls in a row for Washington, stretching from 2012 through 2018. Throughout his time with the franchise, he's been one of the few consistents in a situation of chaos. But of course, the team found a way to mess this up. In 2013, Trent complained of a growth on his head that the training staff told him at the time was not serious. Turns out, it was a form of cancer that went untreated until 2019. Luckily, he had successful surgery to have it removed, but he missed the entire season because of it. He decided at this point that it was best to leave Washington. Currently, he's the starter for the 49ers.
Work out there. Hey, what you gonna do, boy? I'm gonna punch you in your. Hey, do it then, boy.
With the 3rd pick in the 2010 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Gerald McCoy, defensive tackle.
Gerald McCoy was a force at Oklahoma. Physically, he was dominant. Entering the 2010 NFL Draft, he was projected to go 3rd to the Bucs, and that's just what happened. At first, things got off to a rough start. His first 2 years landed him on IR, but in year 3, he finally stayed healthy and made his first Pro Bowl. The following season, Pro Football Focus called him the best defensive tackle in football. Looking to build around this dude, the Bucs gave him a 7-year extension worth nearly $100 million. Pretty big money for a defensive tackle at the time. Long story short, he was dominant for most of the decade. At one point, he carried a streak of 6 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances. His play would fall off a bit though by 2018, and the Bucs would let him go. He would land in Carolina for a year, then would sign with the Cowboys this last offseason. Unfortunately, he suffered a ruptured quad in practice, and the Cowboys waived him. Currently, he's a free agent.
With the 2nd pick in the 2010 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Ndamukong Suh, defensive tackle, Nebraska.
Ndamukong Suh was arguably the most talked about player in college football in 2009. As a defensive end for Nebraska, Suh was so dominant, he was a candidate for the Heisman Trophy, which is primarily an offensive award. He was absolutely unstoppable in college. Just ask Texas. Nebraska lost to Texas in the Big 12 championship, yet Suh got MVP of that game. Right away, he became a force for the Lions. Now, everyone knows how good this dude has been in the past, but his career is overshadowed by stuff like this. By 2014, he had been fined 8 times. Despite being one of the best players in the NFL, the Lions let him walk after his rookie contract. He went on to sign a mega deal with the Dolphins, a 6-year contract worth up to $114 million. This made him the highest paid defensive lineman in NFL history. Now, he was good in his time in Miami, but for the price tag that he had, it was a little underwhelming. He would end up signing with the Rams after that and helping them get to the Super Bowl. Currently, he's starting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, helping them find their defensive identity, and maybe with Brady, they can reach a Super Bowl. Lastly, we have Sam Bradford, Oklahoma standout, the stat sheet stuffer, and the 2008 Heisman Trophy winner. He checked every box NFL scouts and GMs were looking for in an NFL quarterback. The only problem though, he hardly played his last year at Oklahoma. This was due to an injury to his throwing shoulder, which he got surgery on. This raised obvious red flags, but the St. Louis Rams were thinking if he could stay healthy, Bradford was their future. Right away, they told him to carry the offense. Given how bad the team was at the time, this would have been a brutal task for most quarterbacks in general. He took it well though, putting up decent numbers given the situation and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. But the next 3 seasons were up and down at best, which ended with him tearing his ACL in 2013 and coming back in 2014, he retore the same ACL. At this point, the Rams decided that this dude was not durable enough, nor good enough to be their franchise guy, and they would let him go in a trade to the Philadelphia Eagles. Under a new system, Bradford had arguably the best season of his career up to that point. However, headed towards the 2016 NFL Draft, the Eagles shocked the NFL world by trading up to the number 2 pick. This indicated that they were going to take one of the top 2 quarterbacks. Bradford immediately asked for a trade. This would land him in Minnesota following the Bridgewater injury, and Bradford stepped in and had the best season of his career, albeit the team went 7-8 in the games that he started. Overall, Bradford was never more than average. He was very limited as an athlete, and clearly injuries were too big of a concern for him to ever build any momentum. By 2019, he was out of the NFL. So there you have it. The top 10 from 2010 had some good, some bad, and really a lot of memorable moments. But honestly, I just want to go back to CJ Spiller's college highlights. You guys got to see this play.
Maryland riding high, leading 24-13 now. Here's Spiller on the return for Clemson. And it's a good one. Still on his feet across the 40, and he gets away. One man to beat. Blocked downfield. Touchdown, Spiller. Holy cow. There's Pyle. Somebody stepped on his foot. His shoe comes off.
Wow, he ran all that way with only one shoe.